Hope everyone's doing well today. Today we're going to be talking about increasing motivation and satisfaction of employees. What is motivation? Really, there's two types of motivation. We have intrinsic motivation and then we have extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic is more internal. It has to do with a desire for personal growth. It has to do with a passion for work and really earning that sense of achievement, being proud of what we do. Whereas extrinsic is more external factors. So we're looking at things like pay, benefits, recognition, and promotions. Now, employee satisfaction really has to focus more on how happy or content employees are with their jobs. And again, not just the actual job they're doing, but the entire environment around that job. There are certain aspects of job satisfaction. So we're looking at things like work-life balance. What is that work environment? And then what do the relationships with colleagues and managers look like? There are different aspects to measure satisfaction, a lot of which are surveys or other feedback mechanisms, having one-on-one meetings with people where you can really hear how the people are doing and how they're feeling about their work. But now I just wanted to move over to why motivation and satisfaction are important to focus on and how they have an impact on productivity and workplace culture. So in terms of productivity, when someone is more motivated and satisfied, they're more productive, efficient, and creative. This higher motivation leads to proactive problem solving and innovation, and satisfied employees are less likely to take sick leave, and it reduces how much you have to be micromanaging. So when someone cares more about their job, they're more productive. It decreases overhead of having to maintain high oversight on them. And overall, it's just a better feeling in the workplace. So leading into that workplace culture, when you have a positive culture, people are more willing to work together. So it increases that teamwork and it increases respect. Rather than work being a place that you resent and you just are waiting for the day to end, it becomes a place that you actually look forward to. And so this high motivation and satisfaction, it doesn't only impact in the micro level. It also helps decrease turnover rates of employees, and it helps create a stable and experienced workforce within your company. Satisfied employees are also brand ambassadors. So when there is this kind of contagious positive workplace culture, it's easier to attract other talent and maintain the existing talent. It's easier to attract customers because they respect the organization because everyone does seem to have this positive culture. I do want to talk a little bit about motivation theories. So motivation theories provide frameworks for understanding what drives employee behavior, what leads to this positivity, and then it allows managers and leaders within companies to try to enhance motivation and satisfaction by using the different variables in these motivation theories. So while all of them offer unique insights and different ways of looking at these aspects, they do all aim to improve employee engagement and productivity. There is an importance on fairness and equity seen throughout them. So it's this aspect of fairness and treatment and rewards that you will find in all of them. There also is a focus on what we talked about before of intrinsic and extrinsic factors. So all of the theories balance between the two. It's not like one is leaning fully into employee pay while ignoring the intrinsic motivators. And then lastly, they all try to focus on this job satisfaction aspect, where the more involved and the more satisfied employees are, the better the motivational outcomes. So just to go over some tips for increasing motivation and satisfaction, it is really important to be regularly recognizing and reward achievements. When we say reward, it's any of those motivational factors. So a reward can simply be highlighting an employee's achievements. Another aspect is to offer opportunities for career advancement and professional development. I think it's important that career advancement, yes, that's part of the equation in terms of offering career growth within an organization, but sometimes growth also includes things just like professional development. Another aspect is fostering a supportive and inclusive workplace culture. So it is really important that everyone feels like they belong. This sense of belonging within the culture is really important. If you don't feel like you belong somewhere, then you're not going to be as motivated to participate in it. And really what ends up happening is that you're working just to get paid. Another important aspect is communication. So it's good to often audit your own workplace culture's communication. Do people feel like they can share feedback without getting attacked? Do people feel like they can be open and honest with one another without retribution? When people don't, they tend to hold in their feelings, and then this can build up, and tension can form. It's also important to really encourage a healthy work-life balance. So too often employees are going to feel like they need to overcompensate to maintain their job. But if leaders and team leads are really encouraging work-life balance, it's helping the employees feel like they're being seen on a holistic level. So they're not just being seen as a cog in the machinery that can be easily replaced. And then lastly, ensure fair compensation and benefits, and leaning back on the communication, the clarity of this. So this is not to say that you should be fully clear about everyone's pay. That's a separate school of thought. But it is meant to be, how is compensation and benefits being determined? Is that clear? So that each individual feels like they're not getting cheated. Now I want to move in and talk a little bit about effective communication, the role with motivation. And so it is really important for clear and open communication, as I mentioned. And part of the reasons why this is so important is it helps build trust. It enhances engagement. It reduces misunderstandings. And when there's misunderstandings, there's assumptions being made. It helps facilitate collaboration, and then it helps boost morale. So some tips for improving communication is be consistent with regular one-on-one meetings. This really does help not just the employee have a venue to give feedback, but it helps any leader or supervisor or manager to have a venue to be giving that feedback to the employee themselves. It also allows for a more open but private conversation so that the employee can share any of their concerns or fears that they may have. Now, another really important aspect is active listening techniques. So it's one thing to have open communication, but it's another thing to actually be listening. So while you might have an open door policy, what does that actually mean? That means that when employees are coming to talk to you, that you are present and you're listening to them. Again, it helps with motivation because they feel heard. But if you aren't actually listening, then that's going to be just counterproductive there. So you want to be giving your full attention. You want to be closing your emails, turning off sound on your computer. So you want to really be present and use some of this body language to show you're engaged. Interestingly, a lot of people feel like they need to participate and talk to show engagement, but sometimes that can have a crowding out effect. So using body language can be really impactful in helping employees feel like they're being heard. Now to move on, we're going to talk a little bit about recognition and rewards. So it is really important to recognize when employees are doing a good job. Now this isn't always equal. Sometimes what one employee does is great, and when another employee does something that's even 50% as good, that can be great too. And what I'm mentioning there is about everyone has their own independent growth journeys. So if one person finds it really easy to run a meeting, that doesn't mean that someone else is going to find it as easy. So making sure that the recognition is being adjusted to where each employee is at is really important. Now, by doing this, you're helping boost morale, you're increasing engagement, you're increasing productivity, reducing turnover, and you're promoting positive behavior. So as a leader, you might be doing certain things to encourage other employees through positive feedback loops. And you may want other employees to do this. And so you're modeling the behavior by pointing out when someone is doing something well. Now, there are a couple of different types of praises we're going to talk through. So there's verbal praise, This is very immediate and personal. It's acknowledging in the moment. You don't miss these opportunities when you're able to do this. And this could be public or private. And it is very important to know that when you're doing any of these types of recognition, that your venue of how you're sharing this is very important. So whereas one sense you might want something to be public so that it really reinforces that you're willing to share this feedback in front of everyone, there are times that private recognition is even more impactful. Maybe they're embarrassed about what they've been really working on, and so doing it publicly might actually have a negative consequence. Or maybe they really feel that they don't want to be fully seen in front of everyone else, and so having some private feedback can be impactful as well. There are also written acknowledgement. So this could be either over emails or a quick note that you share over. This could be in more public venues like in newsletters or on communication platforms, again, like Slack or Teams, or it could even be on social media. So very similar to the verbal phrase, what you're separating out is how public am I doing this and what's the best venue to then do this. Another aspect might be awards and incentives. There could be financial rewards, so bonuses, gift cards, or other types of financial incentives. That can be a great way to recognize effort. But there's also non-monetary rewards. There could be extra vacation days, flexible working hours, or professional development opportunities that you can make. Now, I want to dive a little bit into creating a positive work environment. So there are certain characteristics of a positive work environment. There tends to be respect and trust, open communication, and supportive cultures. And just to further this, the supportive culture is about that growth mindset. We're supporting through growth and development. Other inclusive workplace practices includes really focusing on diversity and inclusion. And this doesn't have to be to the level of DEI departments and things like that. It's about finding the right balance for your company, for your organization. Now, the real importance is just to follow up with what I was saying before about building up community. So diversity and inclusion is about having every individual in the organization feel like they're part of a larger community. And sometimes that is things like just having a diverse work staff so that you feel like there's others that are like you that you can relate to. And so finding that right balance for your organization is important. It also is about providing equal opportunities to people. So you really want to nip in the bud anytime that things are coming up that people feel like there are equal opportunities for growth, development, and recognition. I want to talk about setting clear goals and expectations. So clear goals are so important for motivation because it's very clear about where you're moving towards. So as an employee, if you have this feeling of a moving goalpost, you're going to feel like nothing is ever good enough. And it's going to be very demotivating because it's hard to say what you've accomplished. So you want to be helping set clear goals with your employees so that they have direction, focus, they have accountability, and they're motivated to work towards and problem solve towards their goals. There's some tips for setting effective goals. Could be things like using SMART goals, so making sure they're specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. There's other aspects of setting long-term goals and then breaking those long-term goals into what I refer to as STAG, short-term achievable goals. So if you have an annual goal, how do we break down that annual goal into quarterly goals or monthly goals and then weekly goals? That way there's a clear path to moving towards these goals. So typically you might have one once a year and the whole purpose is to set them up for maybe compensation and growth. But I want to challenge that because that feels like often for a lot of people that you get one chance and you have this one chance to be able to either prove that you deserve a raise or not. Whereas if you set up more quarterly performance reviews or monthly touch points on this, what you're doing is showing that as a leader or manager, you want them to achieve these goals because you're building in so much support that you're there to help them make sure they achieve their annual goals, as opposed to see you next year and then we'll see if you achieve them or not. And then these performance reviews are an opportunity to have open dialogue, which is really important. Now, in these reviews, you want to be ensuring that you're providing constructive feedback. And so constructive feedback is really important to have it close to when there might be some of that criticism that you want to share, or constructive criticism. So if you wait a month to get feedback, then that's a month of lost opportunity to work on that feedback. So you want it to be timely, but then you also want it to be as specific as possible. You want to share over what they can improve upon, what they can do different. Now, there is a balanced approach with this. So it's sometimes called a positivity sandwich. So when you're giving feedback, you want to give some good feedback, then you can give some bad feedback, and you wrap up with some good feedback. Now, it is important to give that balanced approach, because it can be, when you're receiving feedback, you can really get stuck on all the things you're doing wrong, and it can lead to increased stress and anxiety, and then that makes it harder to actually work on those things. You stop hearing the feedback. And so by giving the positive feedback, it's helping the employee feel like they're being seen holistically again. So it's not just a spotlight on what they're doing wrong, but actually instead it's also a focus on what they're doing right. And then also making sure that the suggestions you're giving, which at first I would always say, ask if an employee wants a suggestion. If they don't want a suggestion, you can ask what they're thinking they can do different. But when they do give permission for feedback, you want to make sure that it's actionable and it's clear for them to be able to go forward and do something about it. And further, you might even want to offer over, should we touch base to see how it's going in 2 weeks? That way, again, you're giving the constructive feedback, but you're also communicating over that you're not in this alone. And that camaraderie forming makes them feel more motivated, because they don't feel like they're just being told what they're doing wrong and that it's their problem to fix, but they feel like it's an opportunity that they have a partner in that growth. So just some of the key points that we talked about include things like effective communication, recognition and rewards, professional development opportunities, work-life balance, creating a positive work environment, setting clear goals, and expectation. Further, practice what you preach. Seek your own feedback on how well the rollout of some of these motivation strategies may be working within your organization. And then celebrate your successes. So making sure that the implementation of this is its own project, that you're feeling like you can celebrate successes and you can acknowledge challenges to constantly make it better. Now, if you found this video or this series of videos helpful, be sure to subscribe to our channel, share this over to other people that may benefit from it, and like and share it. If you want more, or you're looking into some additional support, maybe with an outside coaching agency, you can always reach out to us. Our website is www.nfil.net. We're New Frontiers Executive Function Coaching, and we hope to see you around.